Hey, Empire Builders. This is Anthony Metivier from brandingu.academy with the great Jonathan Levy. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
Fantastic, my friend. I'm excited about today's episode. It's a near and dear one to my heart.
Absolutely. So it's one that I'm struggling to get some clarity on, like, constantly. So let's talk about leaders versus managers and all the things that, what's your clarity on it at the moment?
Okay, so in order to give you clarity, I have to tell you a story, which every entrepreneur should become very good at storytelling. You know who taught me that? Dr. Anthony Metivier and Russell Brunson.
Right.
So I had a business when I was 16 years old. I started a company. It grew to be a multi-million-dollar business. And I struggled a lot. I was an 18-year-old CEO by the time I had a pretty decent sized company. When I was 22, I had like 7 people working for me, and I was a really crappy manager. I just didn't know how to manage people. And I started going to EO. I started reading every book I could find. I started, even before I was the super learner, like, I believed in learning. I grew up being told that learning is the way. And then I learned the learning techniques that I'm known for, that you and I are both known for. Then I went to business school, spent $110,000 trying to learn how to manage better. I mean, it's called a Master's of Business Administration. So how do you administer and manage businesses better? And I still didn't learn a lot there, and I still was not a good manager. And I just thought, I got to get better at this because I want to be a CEO. I want to be a leader, an entrepreneur. I don't want to have a job. So, if you can't lead others, you have to be led. And then I went to, I mean, I've invested over $250,000 in my own education in the last 10 years alone, right? And I've read just about every book you can think of, from Ferdinand Fournier's Coaching for Improved Work Performance to The New 1 Minute Manager, E-Myth Revisited, Virtual Free. I mean, I've read a lot of books on this.
Hmm.
And I've also, you know, mentored on this and told you, like, Anthony, you got to get better at managing people. And then I had an epiphany recently because I wasn't getting much better at it. I was getting better at it, but not much better. And I still wasn't a master, and I still didn't enjoy it. And then I
Hmm.
got into Strategic Coach, which was recommended through Genius Network. It's Dan Sullivan's coaching program. And I started learning about all these ideas called, what's your unique ability?
Yeah.
And and Dan has this really, really smart saying, which goes, if you spend 25 years working on your weaknesses, all you'll be left with is a lot of fairly strong weaknesses.
Right.
And for the first time, I don't know how no one ever told me this in EO, in business school, but I got permission, and someone just pulled me aside because I shared openly on the mic, I'm so bad at this and I don't know how I'm ever going to get better at this. And someone was like, Jonathan, you know that you can be a leader without being a manager, right? And I was like, my mind was just blown. And I didn't know that. I did not know that there was a difference. I thought the person who sets the vision, the leader, needs to be the one to actually implement it. Otherwise, you're just a dictator. That is not true. And I realized, first off, I learned more about leadership from a 14-hour acid trip than I ever learned in business school about what true leadership means. But
Right.
also, I realized, so I came home in my business and said a couple different things. First, I said, guys, I'm really sorry. I did some soul searching. I really hate managing. I hate managing people, and I hate managing projects. And everyone in my business just goes, ah, thank God you suck at it. Can we please take it off your plate? It's just, we have a very psychologically safe culture. I have managed successfully to implement that. And they go, God, you're terrible at it. Can we, and one guy goes, can I please take this over? And then we started talking about this idea of the entrepreneurial operating system, which is, there's a couple books. There's Traction. I know you have one, Anthony, Rocket Fuel, over there, that I've
Yeah.
also read. And it's the system for managing an entrepreneurial business. And the core tenet to that is breaking out the visionary and the integrator. Or I'm sorry, the integrator. And the whole idea is, like, Roy Disney did not know how to actually manage or work with people. He just knew, or I'm sorry, Walt Disney. He just knew how to have crazy ideas. And what I realized is that from years and years and years of needing to be the one to implement my own ideas, or thinking I needed to be the one, I was limited to what I could actually manage and put in place in my business, which is not a lot. I cannot lead
Hmm.
big projects. Even the fact that we rebranded our business this time last year, big project, I could not have done that by myself. I just couldn't have done it. It was too many moving pieces. And so all of my entrepreneurial career, I've been limited by what I myself can actually put in place. If you look at very successful visionaries, folks like the Elon Musks and the Steve Jobs, they don't know how to do even a fraction of the stuff that they dream up. But what I realized was being freed from the, okay, wait, but how am I going to do it? It's a lot like, what's the first rule of a brainstorming session? There's no bad ideas, right?
Right,
It's
right.
like, because the minute someone goes, wait, but how would that actually work? You kill the entire energy of thinking creatively. Creative thought cannot exist in a environment where pragmatism is prioritized. And I realized
Right.
that's what was happening between my right brain and my left brain. It's like I would think something beautiful and incredible, like, gosh, we should do a world learning summit where we got together all the experts in learning, and we just did a 1 week long conference, and Barbara Oakley would come and talk, and Anthony would talk, and but wait a minute, how the hell are we going to do something that big and ambitious? And you just
Yeah,
kill
yeah.
the idea right then and there. So what we've done in our business is we've started down this path, and it's not easy, but we've read the books, Rocket Fuel and Traction, and we're starting down this path of allowing me to just be a visionary. And we can talk a little bit about the psychological challenges that have come along with that and the
Yeah,
identity
yeah.
challenges. But it's been incredibly freeing, and things actually get done a lot better in my business.
Right,
So,
right.
so I just
So
hog
isn't
the
it,
airways, but tell me more.
well, let me ask you, isn't it Dan Sullivan who also says, I heard this through Dean Jackson, but I think it's from Dan Sullivan, that, it's not how, but who,
Yes, who, not
isn't
how.
that the,
This framework has changed my life in the last year. In fact, the theme of my year last year was who, not how. I do a theme
right?
for every year of my development. And the whole idea with who, not how, my coach, my kind of like sub coach under Dan, calls it strategic W placement, right? Is the W
Mhm.
at the end or at the beginning? And the whole idea is, especially as entrepreneurs, but also just as people, howing sucks. It's not fun to try and figure out something. And this is me as the learning expert saying this. Like, if you really don't know how to do something and it's so outside your wheelhouse and you're not passionate and excited about figuring it out, howing sucks. It's just terrible. It's like, well, I don't know how to do this, and I feel frustrated and I'm overwhelmed. And whereas whoing is really easy. It's like, who can I figure out and collaborate with that can help me, mentor me, or just do this for me? It's
Yeah.
become so easy. We just hired an incredible woman. Her name is Erica Sheets, and she, for years, we've been saying we need to bring our teachings to corporations. And it's like, well, I don't know how. We know nothing about corporate sales. I've never even worked in a corporation. So what do I
Right.
know, right? And in one, sweep of the pen, signing a check, I now have 15 years of experience at my disposal that I can call her up and say, what if we did this? And she goes, oh, no, 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 I tried that one time. It doesn't, and she's building this whole incredible strategy. And it also relates, and I know, a lot of our audience is just starting out, so this might not be relevant to you yet, but it might be more relevant than you think. Dan Sullivan always says, if you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't have the problem. And it's,
Right.
it's not, and I believe that fundamentally is true, right? Like, for everything. Like, I believe that we could cure cancer if every government in the world donated $20 billion to cancer research. I think we could figure it out. But
Right.
also, I think it's also true for a lot of problems people don't think, right? If you have depression and you have enough money to go see the best therapists, the best psychiatrists, go to the best meditation counselor, I mean, 15 different ways to solve your problem, I bet you can solve the problem. And so money in that way, I don't think is evil. I just think it's a really powerful tool. But it's definitely true in business. I had a problem when you and I met. You challenged me and you said, what if you were to build a premium level course, not a $10 course, where you did everything and you put it all in? And I mean, you just gave your all and give your customers the value they deserve. And I had this problem of like, God, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do all the work by myself. And I started writing checks. I wrote checks, and I brought smart people around me who helped me, whether it was professional videographers, whether it was sound technicians, video editors, and I solved that problem. And how
Okay.
amazing is that? So
It's great. And, for those beginners, there, I mean, I don't know how good it is today because I haven't used it for a long time, but there's got to be an equivalent. But when my first book came out, I did the first cover myself, and it got to be a bestseller with the cover I did myself. But then it became clear you got to have better covers. So the who then was Fiverr, right?
Yeah,
And I just hired a bunch of people until I found somebody. That guy wound up doing probably 30 covers for me and graphics for Udemy and all kinds of things. Because once I
exactly.
found him, then the answer was need graphics, ask him, and
Yes.
he just
Yeah,
disappeared from Fiverr one day. But it taught me a lot about, not how am I going to get this done, but who's going to get it done.
exactly. And the core of this really is realizing, and again, I'm all for growth and learning new skills if you're passionate and motivated and excited about them. And I've always been around that. What Dan Sullivan in Strategic Coach, and I recommend this for anyone who's already at the six-figure point and above in their business, go to Strategic Coach. It's probably the best money you'll ever spend on yourself, in my opinion. But what Strategic Coach gave me the permission to do is say, just because you're good at something or you can figure something out doesn't mean you should do it. And that's from two different angles. One, again, do you want to have a lot of strong weaknesses? And also, you should spend your time, because your job is to maintain your passion and enthusiasm. You should spend your time doing the stuff that you love in your business. Otherwise, why start your own business? Go get a job if you want someone to tell you what to do that you don't love doing. But also, I had an identity crisis around this, because one, what I love doing is creating new stuff. And I was like, come on, Jonathan, like, don't be a prima donna and say, all I want to do is create new creative ideas. And I don't actually want to work on implementing them. And that felt to me like being a total wimp and a spoiled brat. Uh, but what I came to realize is that every time I was doing something like that, oh, and the other side of my identity crisis is that I'm like the super learner guy, right? So you first years ago told me about the importance of copywriting, and I sat down and I read a crap ton of books and I read a ton of copy, and you mentored me a ton, which I super appreciate. And I became a half decent copywriter. I've written, six-figure sales letters. But at the same time, I realized, like, if I'm doing something that I'm not passionate about and not loving, what that means is I'm taking that off of the plate of someone who could love that. And you
Right.
might think, nobody loves sweeping the floors. Actually, there are some people out there who love sweeping the floors. And there are some people out there who love doing the accounting and filing taxes. It makes them super happy. So you can't be taking that stuff off of their plate and making yourself miserable with it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's a big revelation, and it can be a hard one because
Yeah.
when I started to have help with my emails, I was blown away, by how much better somebody who's not a copywriter could do my emails. Now, I still do a lot of my emails, but
Hmm.
it's in this sort of not replacement process, but I've just been blown away. And, just things where I had this idea that I had to be the editor of the content or the content manager because I understand what the words are all about. Whereas when I see some of the stuff that Jessica, who's relatively new on the team, I'm just like, oh, what the hell? This is unbelievable. There's no way that I'll ever get this good at putting stuff on an internet page. And now I'm
Yeah.
just like, how can I get you to, marry my business and
Yeah.
just,
So she's
do that.
writing like blog content and stuff for you?
Well, she's a content manager and she's fixing a lot of content and doing some new writing.
Yeah.
And if you look, just as an example, if I can throw one out there, how to memorize a textbook, it's worlds better than it used to be. And I
Yeah.
don't know how the heck it got 130 shares on that damn page the way I did it, but I'm pretty sure we're going to quadruple it now.
Yeah, of
And
course.
already the traffic is crazy. We did the video version today. I've never had 550 views in a single day on a video, I don't
It's
think. And
fantastic.
it's just, you could see the metrics already just.
Yeah, and I wanna caveat by saying, when you start out, you're gonna do everything, like
Mm,
almost
yeah.
everything. I think even at the very beginning, you're gonna outsource some stuff, right? Like, you're not gonna go down to City Hall and file your business permit, right? You're just gonna go on a
Right, right.
website and hire a LegalZoom to do it for you. So you're already outsourcing some stuff, but it's perfectly normal and natural and acceptable that when you first start out, you're doing everything. And that's
Mm,
okay, and that's good, because you need to figure out what you love and what you don't. And Dan Sullivan, I can't give people the tool because it's his, but he has this idea called the activity inventory, which is like, write down everything that you do and write down, are you excellent, competent, incompetent, or is it your unique ability? And I also write down, like, how do I feel about it, right? Am I excellent at it but I hate it? That's something that could become, that can't become a unique ability. Or am I excellent at it and I love it? That's a good candidate for something that might be part of my unique ability. And I encourage people to do that, because pretty quickly in your business, you should start
Yep.
delegating stuff out. And it might not, by the way, be the things that you think you need to delegate out. Like,
Right.
there are some menial tasks in my business that I love doing and I do better than anyone else on our team. And so I had delegated those and it made me miserable. I was like, oh, how'd you do that? Like, can I help? I want to be part of that. So
Right.
there are a few things, and Keith Cunningham talks about this in The Road Less Stupid. There are a few things that you can never delegate unless you fully step away from the business. Like, if you are the CEO of the company, you can never ever delegate creating culture. That's your job. You can never
Right.
ever delegate the company vision. And the
Mm.
people who have delegated that become full on just visionaries, uh, or hire a CEO and step away from their businesses, and that's also okay.
Right.
Um,
Um, what's super interesting about that is it brings to mind some things you've talked about a lot, which is having a vision. And when you started to talk about that last year with me, uh, I thought of Andy Jenkins a lot. And this was before Andy Jenkins died. And for
yeah,
people who don't know him, he was one of the big guys behind Webinar Jam. But shortly before he died, he had a campaign for Webinar Jam, which was just the idea that you could just talk and type in your business. And so I sort of seized upon that as my vision that I want to get to. And step by step, slowly but surely, we're getting to the point where that's just what I do: talk and type. And those are the things that I really love to do. Other
elaborate
than,
on that. What would you do besides talk and type? Like design web pages or something like that?
well, I mean, just imagine even the things we're talking about today. It's like, okay, so there's a video that's up. It needs a description. So,
Mhm.
okay, just type and this is a Dean Jackson thing. Like, how can I reduce the clicks? Because Dean Jackson, when I went to his session down in Sydney, there he was just describing how he counts the times he has to tap his phone to get a certain thing done, and his goal is like between 2 to 5. And so I'm just thinking, everything that I do,
Wow.
what is the click reduction, so that I literally am just talking and typing. Now there's one more thing in there, which is reading, because I love reading. So
Hmm.
read, talk, and type. But with you talking about vision statements a lot more, and with Andy Jenkins, swan song, so to speak, of this talk and type, with, in my case, read, talk, and type, I just have been, like I say, slowly but surely figuring out how that is just what I do. And it's just amazing how that, it's almost like, how do you manage and lead yourself to make
Yeah.
that happen? And that's
I
the
had
sort
a
of big question.
friend who actually referred me to EOS, got me reading Rocket Fuel, got me reading Traction. And he said he has a big business, hundreds of employees. And he told me, his name's Matt. He told me, he's like, getting out into this world, and implementing things like EOS, going to Strategic Coach, hanging out with entrepreneurs. He actually joined also Abundance 360 and Genius Network all in 1 year.
Wow.
And he said it felt like I've been a tiger caged in for years at my business, running it and managing it. And it felt like someone opened the door to the cage and I had to step outside, and I didn't remember what a tiger should do anymore. I just had to relearn how to behave like a tiger, because the metaphor is so perfect, because an entrepreneur is all over the place and let's do this. I mean, you and I, in a given 1 hour conversation, we have 10 different business ideas, right? It's like, we could do
Right.
this and we could do that. But when you're in the framework of managing your own company, if you're a visionary, right? There are some CEOs, I haven't met a lot of them. There are some CEOs who are a 2 quick start and they're, a 9 follow through or 9 fact finder on the Colby. Fine. But for the vast majority of us who are entrepreneurial types, we're quick starts. And then you just have that kind of tampered down and beaten out of you by the kind of like pragmatic reality of running your business. And you do have to relearn that. And that's what I'm relearning right now,
Right.
is just Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can do so much more when I don't actually have to be the one to do it or facilitate it or plan it. And also no one else on my team can have these big, crazy, stupid ideas.
Mm. Yeah, it's revolutionary stuff, and I wondered about it for years with Tony Buzan. Like, how is this happening? And
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I went and met him. He's like, he came in and he said, "I don't have to be here. I just wanted to meet you guys," you know.
Yeah.
And then great things happened because he was there. But it's a strange thing. You almost have to give yourself permission to imagine it being possible, and then just start to figure it out,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
stick with figuring it out, because it can be
And have
done.
the
And
right people. It so much
yeah,
comes down to having the right people. And I'm learning this and I'm struggling through this because I've always had the attitude of like, when it, when I can justify it or when I can afford it, then I will hire this person. Right. But that's not a way to grow. Like, it's like, basically what you're doing in that case is like, okay, when there are enough B2B sales that I can justify hiring a B2B manager, then I'll do it. Well, I'm not going to get enough B2B sales on my own. So it's like in some cases you have to be okay. And this was another lesson that got beaten into me by my strategic coach family, the participants, is like, you got to be willing to invest in advance, right?
right,
You
right,
can't earn rent on a building that you haven't bought yet. And so
right,
just
right.
discovering that, and so I set myself a very high goal to invest six figures in growing different areas of my business in Q1 of this year, or maybe it's in the first half of this year. Either way, a lot of money very, very fast because I've had this scarcity mentality of like, okay, when it's worth it, then we'll bring our ad accounts in house and we'll hire someone full time to run ads, and it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you
Mm.
have to make that investment in advance and you have to take that risk in advance. And if you're going to do that, then there's a huge difference between A players and B players, and if you want to see that return on your investment into people, both time and money, gotta make smart investments. And that's a hard
Right.
pill to swallow because smart people aren't cheap, you know?
Well, yeah, that's very true, and it's one of those things that I'm totally ready to have a six-figure person come onto my team to be the manager, but pulling the trigger on that is super scary, simply because knowing my managerial weaknesses, and
Yeah.
then thinking all the time I have to manage manager, right? Or what are going to be all the checks and measures to make sure that this is actually getting done, and yada yada yada.
You
It's
need
hard for
an
me to imagine
integrator.
how that's going to work. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah. Well,
need an integrator.
and thank you for recommending this, because that's helping me think
Totally.
about it in a different way than I
Yeah,
was before.
I got really lucky that someone that I brought in for pretty low level tasks in the beginning, just writing summaries of my podcast episodes, has just risen up the ranks periodically and done more and done more and done more, and is now kind of my integrator. And it's not a full decision yet, but we've decided to give it half a year and see how he is as an integrator, and it's going really well. And I feel really comfortable with him, and we have great communication, and he pushes back when he needs to and tell me, look, we can't do that. And when we can, he says, dream big, man. Like, I love it, let's do it. And it's been a great relationship. And more importantly, like, my team is even happier with that person in place. So I think, again, this is advanced stuff for a lot of people when they're just starting out. But I would say, you have to start somewhere. And even if it's starting, my first hire was a $600 a month VA, and that frees up some of your time to then go on and hire a marketing person. And you build gradually and slowly. And I've been an advocate in the past of the who method, the A method for hiring, and it's like these 6 interviews. It's really intense, it takes weeks to implement. But for a lot of roles that are not crucial, things like an integrator is crucial. But for a lot of roles, I heard an amazing talk at Genius Network from Perry Belcher of Traffic and Conversion, digital
Okay.
marketer. Really, they just sold their company for bajillions of dollars, and their policy for non-crucial hires was hire fast with a prenup, fire faster if it doesn't work out. I think that is so smart. So when we hire someone, it's like it's either a 2-week trial period or a 90-day trial period. In the case of something really complicated, but it's like, here's what you need to achieve. Here's the prenup, right? If you don't do X, Y, Z, and it's not done to my satisfaction, there's no firing. It's just, we don't renew this contract. And if,
Mm.
there is no difficult conversation, it's like, we're not renewing the contract.
Right,
And
right.
they don't even have to ask because they know, oh, I didn't achieve this and I didn't do that and I didn't show up here. So it's very easy. And I love that idea.
That sounds very brilliant and something we should pick up on another episode talking about
Yes.
hiring. I've certainly
Yes.
jumped in with implementation as my guide, but man, have I ever failed badly with hiring sometimes. And I think
It's not
something
easy.
about we should talk about personality profiling at some point too, because
Hmm.
that's definitely a part of it. And I recently took a course on personality, and it blew me away that I never realized this simple thing before, which is that we have a hard time even perceiving that there are other personality types, let
Yeah,
alone knowing what
that
they
is so
are.
true.
So
That is so
that could
true.
be a good topic.
So if people want to know if they're a leader or a manager, I imagine some of this already resonates with you, but there
Mm.
is a visionary integrator test somewhere online. It might be on Mark Winters' site, the co-author of Rocket Fuel, but you can take it and it will actually tell you like I'm a visionary or I'm an integrator. You might, like in my case, I'm only like 80% visionary, not 100%. And I think part of that is, again, I've been strengthening my weaknesses for a long time. For 15 years,
Right,
I've been
right.
strengthening this weakness. And I think a couple years of letting my freak flag fly, so to speak, I will be back in the position where I am properly visionary. But it also doesn't matter, right? 80% is enough to be like, I should not be doing this. I should not be the one managing projects in our business, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, it's definitely a great resource. So thank you again for mentioning Rocket Fuel, and I
My
would
pleasure.
encourage everybody to get it. And we got oodles more resources, not in an overwhelming sense, but one thing people should understand is that there's an overwhelming amount of information out there, period, right?
Yeah,
So in order to help you get some vision, some sight, some light in the darkness, just find somebody who has a structured curriculum. And we've got just our free stuff is, notoriously well done for helping people find some of that light. So I would just, recommend anybody to come to brandingyou.academy and at least take the free trial of what we've created for you so you can get some of that vision going for yourself and some worksheets and action steps, what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and maybe who
absolutely.
to help you with it, because I think we've got recommendations there too.
Absolutely. And if you haven't already, give this video a like. If you're watching a video, if you're watching audio, leave us a review on iTunes and just let us know that you enjoy what we're doing and you'd like us to keep doing it. Because as we talked about in a previous episode, it's all about getting that user feedback and implementing it. And that's exactly what we are doing here. Anthony, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you very much, my friend.